Welcome back, everyone, to another live edition of the DCL Duo podcast brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And it's the big one, Sam. It's the Royal Caribbean Review. I want to say thanks to everyone out there who is watching. We're going to skip the hellos tonight because this is a jam-packed episode, and we are under a bit of a time constraint because we got to pick our son up here from an appointment in a little over a couple hours. So I expect
and poor Brian literally just walked in the door like 4 minutes ago, everyone. So I'm sorry if we are a little bit discombobulated more than usual tonight because he literally walked in the door and logged on, and we are live with you all.
Yeah, we live in the Pacific Northwest where it rains a lot, but when it rains, no one seems to figure out how to drive. So anyway, that is what it is, but we are here. We are live. We're going to talk to you about our Royal Caribbean cruise on the Oasis of the Seas. We got a special offer from our show sponsor that we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show. So if we pique your interest about Royal Caribbean, stick around. A special offer in store for you from My Path Unwinding Travel. But Sam, let's just dive in. We're going to go day by day. We typically break these up into topical, but it's going to be hard for us to give you the full experience unless we go day by day. We took the Oasis of the Seas on a 7-night Eastern Caribbean sailing out of the port of Miami. It stopped at St. Thomas, it stopped at Coco Cay, and it stopped at St. Martin. We were originally supposed to stop at Labadee in Haiti, but because of everything going on there, Royal Caribbean canceled that stop and replaced it with St. Martin.
On a different day. So we had a switch of what was a sea day to a port day. But we still had the same number of ports.
We might talk a little bit about it because it was kind of an interesting thing that happened there in terms of some of the onboard activities and things like that. But they switched us up. Not all the sailings have been switched over, by the way. So some sailings on Royal are just skipping it all together and having a sea day.
Yep.
That's it. So we flew into Miami the day before. We followed our own guidance. We never just fly in the day of. A terrible idea, especially from the West Coast because we can't get there in time to get on the cruise.
That's right. We got to give a hot take about that hotel.
Well, that's where I'm headed. So we flew to Miami the day before, took an Uber to our hotel. I believe it was a Hyatt Grand Regency or something along those lines. Yeah,
the Hyatt Grand Regency Miami.
Yes.
And very central location.
Yes. And I will say we heard from some listener feedback that there are some people who've stayed there who've loved it. It is right on one of the waterways and right on the main road through the downtown area that people seem to kind of cruise down. It's near Brickell, which is kind of a nightlife area of town.
Yeah, it's attached to like a concert venue / conference center as well.
Although that wasn't the core problem. The core problem was we had a room, and I think all the rooms in the hotel would have this problem that was like near the waterway and near the roadway, and people were cruising, in
all
their
hours
cars,
of the night,
playing loud music, cruising the waterway on their boats, playing loud music. It was a hopping time. I mean, to be fair, it was a Saturday night, I think, that we got there.
It was a Saturday night, and at all hours of the night, we could hear what sounded like drag racing or music kind of on and off because of people passing by. Now, we were up on the 6th floor, so we were not like on ground floor or anything like that. I don't know if it was just how loud it was or if it was the windows of this hotel. But in our hotel room, when we got there, we should have known this was a clue that we should have turned around and checked out. There were 2 pairs of earplugs, and there was a white noise machine next to the bed. Now, we had a nice size room, and Nathan had a pull-out couch to sleep on, and he slept just fine. But yeah, it was kind of crazy how loud it was, and so it's just not a hotel I'd recommend. I don't want to belabor the issue, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Not recommended by the DCL Duo. In fact, we canceled another reservation we had there for an upcoming cruise out of Miami and switched it back over to a Marriott. We did have a fabulous dinner that night. I don't quite remember the name of the restaurant. It was an Italian place that we walked to.
Periconi's.
So shout out to Willie for a recommendation around that. If you're in Miami, I guess it's a little odd to fly all the way to Miami to have Italian food, but that's what we did. So it was it was good. We had a good meal. Woke up the next morning. We Ubered to the port of Miami. We didn't use any sort of hotel-provided transportation to the port. I will say Uber has gotten out of hand with its pricing, but we Ubered over to the port. Want to start with the back up for a second and talk about the check-in experience and the activity booking experience on Royal. So Activity booking, I know we've covered this on the show before, but it is very different on Royal Caribbean than what you experience on Disney Cruise Line. Royal just kind of puts stuff out as it's available. So like one day you'll go check there's no shore excursions, and then the next day shore excursions.
Or
one
shows are available.
Yeah, shows are available to book for. You reserve seats in the shows. There's no cost to reserve seats in the shows.
Or dining reservations pop up and things
dining
like that.
packages. Plus, Royal runs sales all the time. So you might go book a dining package, for example, and then find out that, you could have gotten it for cheaper. When you book something on Royal, you pay at the time. So if you buy a dining package, drink package, you book a shore excursion, anything like that, any of the other upgrades, you pay at the time. If they run a sale, you can always cancel, and then the credit goes back to your credit card, and you can just repurchase at the lower price. There's a little hassle there because sometimes it takes a little longer for the refund to come in and all that sort of stuff. But we did that several times throughout the booking process to take advantage of lower prices. And I don't mind them, the refund and the charge on the card taking a little time to resolve. So that all works great.
Same with cabanas and casitas. You can do that as well. It's different than at Disney where you have a specific day that you can book everything depending upon your Castaway Club status. This is kind of a free-for-all, but it's also less of a rope drop culture in the sense that you don't necessarily have to book on the day all the stuff opens. Of course, it's hard to know when they're going to open because they don't announce when they're going to open things, but joining Facebook groups is helpful because then you have multiple people who are stalking the website and will sort of post usually when something is available.
To be fair, almost everything we wanted was always available. So like and the other thing I want to highlight, we booked they have 3 categories of suites, which I know we've had, I think, Karen on in the past and others to talk about the suites. We sailed in a Sky class suite, which is they do sea, sky, stars. So we were not in star class with the butler. We were in sky class, which is we'll get to this in a second, but very akin to concierge. And so we could have waited until our concierge team reached out to us to do things like book some dining and some other things. Being the Disney people that we are, we were like, oh my God, am I not going to be able to get what I want? So we booked it all ourselves. No, lesson learned. We should have taken Matt's advice, I think, on the dining especially, and potentially canceled all of our dining reservations, bought a dining package because we ended up actually adding another specialty restaurant on board, which we'll talk about in a second, and then just had the concierge book the times we wanted. But we didn't do that. Lesson learned. It didn't cost us so much that I'm annoyed about it. But just know if you're sailing in that suite class experience, it's not like Disney where 130 days in advance you tell them what you want, and then like 120 days out.
Yeah,
it magically
it's like
appears.
a maximum of 7 days in advance if you're if you're sailing suite class. Yeah. If you're sailing regular, you are going to want to be stalking that website, and like I said, join the Facebook groups. The Facebook groups are not. Well, I'm sure it depends, but in general, I think the Facebook groups are not as active as Disney Facebook groups, but they do exist, and there are people that will post about, oh, the shows are up, or oh, dining is up, or oh, drink packages are on sale. So you can get alerts that way. That's probably your best place to get alerts.
So we got everything we needed, wanted, times we wanted. Everything worked out great for us. So I have no complaints with Royal about the pre-cruise booking process. We'll talk about costs at the end of the show. I'm sure people are interested to understand, so we paid for a bunch of stuff on top of the cruise fare and how that'll factor in. I am going to talk about that. The next thing in the process I want to talk about, though, is the online check-in. And dear Disney, Royal's online check-in. Now, I will say this. I did hit some snags this time, but in general, their online check-in process is fabulous. You go into the app. It is one screen, not 5 screens or 6 screens. It will pull in information from prior sailings, I'm fairly sure, because I think my information populated on one of the check-ins I just had to do for an upcoming cruise we have on Royal in May. And basically it was like, okay, scan your passport. I held it up, and it wasn't one of those things where you're like holding your phone in your hand and you're trying to get the passport position just right. It was like a passport came into frame and it was like, bam, passport information imported and 100% accurate. Take a selfie, done. That was it. Done. Add a credit card, done. And choose your port arrival time, done. It was literally 4 steps all on basically one screen. And then I did that for each of us bam, bam, bam. We were checked in like less than 5 minutes, which, on Disney, that's easily a 10 to 15 minute exercise, especially if you have a kid. Now, one downside of it is, Disney, when you check in, you do a lot of the pre-check-in process for the kids clubs. On Royal, you do none of it. You will do that stuff on board, and we can talk about that in a second when we get to day one. But I kudos to Royal, because I think that check-in process was fantastic. And I know Matt previewed for us, if you do that, you speed right through the port. And again, get to that in 1 second. But the check-in process, fantastic. Sam, what was the fun thing we got to do? Like, we'll talk about the arrival at the port, but on the way to the port, Matt gave us a tip that there was something we can do. And we did it.
Yes.
That Disney doesn't let us do.
Yeah, you can watch the muster drill ahead of time. So there's a muster video. Basically, you're doing it through their app. You watch the video, and then when you get on board, all you have to do is check in at your muster station, and then you're done. So it is the virtual muster drill, similar to what Disney did after the reopening, the pandemic reopening, and but now has obviously abandoned. And so it's great. Yeah. So we watched the video. Did it in the car. We were stuck in traffic quite a bit. So the Miami port
that's what I wanted to talk about. So
yeah, Miami port is kind of crazy.
Well, Royal's port in Miami is particularly crazy. So the port is basically one long island in Miami, and Virgin's all the way at one end of it. Royal is all the way at the other. MSC is soon to be right past Royal. Royal's got the largest ships sailing in and out of Miami right now. But the traffic was insanely backed up to get to Terminal A, where Royal is. Terminal AA is going to be where MSC Cruises is going to be. But, Royal's trying to get, 6,000 to 7,000 people on and off a ship when they have a ship in port. And we must have sped to the port and then spent 15 or 20 minutes just sitting in traffic to get around a turn to where we could drop off our luggage. Now, that said, once we got around the turn and out of the car and the luggage was to the porters, because we were Sky Class in a suite class, we walked in a special door, went up an elevator, went to a seating area. Someone came over with an iPad, had us
we barely sat down.
Yeah, we didn't even need to sit down. Re-verify our passports, and then Sam was like, "So do we just wait here?" And she was like, "No, you just go get in the ship." And she's like, "Oh, where's the line?" There was no line. So
there was no line.
We walked around the gate from door to door in the Sky Class that we sailed. And I think for C Class too, I can't remember. But
yeah, it is. It's for C, so junior suites and above. So C Class, Sky Class, and Star Class all get this, and actually Pinnacle, which are the
we'll talk about them in a second.
ultra pearl of Royal Caribbean.
The gold name tag wearers, on board. It was 10 minutes. Once we got out of the car and dropped the luggage, it was max of 10 minutes until we were standing in the atrium. It was a fabulous
in
boarding
the promenade
process.
On the promenade deck, Brian.
They had a nice lounge. We didn't even. If we had
didn't
to
get
wait,
to stay
it would have been
but,
comfortable. But so great boarding experience. All right, now here's the question everyone has been waiting for. Sam, we did take care of our muster drill after we got on board, but Sam, you walk across the gangway to board the fabulous. I feel like I'm interviewing our guest to board the fabulous Royal Oasis of the Seas.
Yep.
And you get on, and what first impressions?
First impressions were okay. So we walk on, and we're actually walking onto what's I think is the running track, and then we walk into the promenade deck, which is it's different. I'm not like the promenade deck on Disney where you are walking outside. Their promenade deck it's the sort of a central hub where there's bars and restaurants and stores, and it looks a lot like a mall. It was very pretty. I was like, I am definitely not in Kansas anymore. I'm not in Disney anymore. It's not an atrium. It's a very different look. But the first thing I see are basically there's some stores. There are some balloons that are tied up to the ceiling because there was going to be a balloon drop that night at midnight. It was very pretty, though. I thought everything was very clean. I was impressed at how clean everything was. But there was no, characters. There was no Mickey, and there were no cast members sort of cheering you on. And of course, nobody announced our family name to welcome us aboard the Oasis of the Seas. So that was certainly different. The first thing I really wanted to do was to just walk around and check out, all the different spaces and just kind of see things and get my bearings. I did find it was pretty easy to navigate the ship. Like the layout was not super confusing, with one exception, in that because there's kind of I'm going to call it a hole in the middle of the ship, but it's because Central Park is, the ship doesn't, the floors don't necessarily go all the way across. And you have that on the top decks on Disney Cruise Line, but it's a little bit.
There's a massive, on the Oasis class ships, there's a massive atrium down the middle. Like that's what's going on.
Right, an open air, called Central Park.
Well, open air, for up above, and then below Central Park, it's more of like a vaulted ceiling kind of thing. I'd say my impression initially on like the Independence of the Seas was that area felt like a mall. I think we both agree that after being on the ship for 7 nights, what it really was more akin to is being at like a really nice Las Vegas resort on the ocean.
Yes,
like that's
absolutely.
what it felt like.
Yeah, it looks a little bit mallish when you first come in, but it's not mallish in the sense of like there's not stores like lined. There are a few stores, but it didn't feel like there were stores lining everywhere, which I was pleasantly surprised by that, because that's the thing I was kind of afraid of. But I would agree, it definitely felt more like a Vegas resort than being on an ocean liner, which is kind of the vibe or the feel of Disney. So the sort of that's the contrast I would put there. But yeah, we did our muster station right away. That was super easy. We walked around. We ended up getting lunch. I'm trying to think, what are the things we did? You have the list of everything
I got you covered, Sam. I'll guide you.
Good.
I'll guide you. All right.
You could, because I honestly can't remember everything we did. We did so much on this trip.
One key difference between, just for those of you out there who sail concierge on Disney, one key difference between Royal and Disney in this regard, our room was not ready. All the rooms were ready at about the same time, at like 1 o'clock, 1:30, I think it was. They were ready. So we did have to keep everything with us. Now, because we were, we could have gone to the buffet. There was a sit-down option for lunch. There's also several like eateries that were open. You could have done a specialty restaurant for lunch if you really wanted to. I think some of them were open.
Some of them were open. Not all of them were open. Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk about all the restaurants here in a second, because we did check most of them out. But we went to our room, and I want to share. So our room was a Crown Loft suite. For those that doesn't make sense to, it was a 2-story kind of thing where the bottom floor had a bathroom, kind of a small dining area, some closet space, a couch that turned into bunk beds, not a bed. It was
quite cool.
Bunk beds. It was very cool.
Yeah.
A TV. We had a huge deck off the back because we were on the back of the ship. Huge deck. It was fabulous. That deck was fabulous, and we spent some time out there.
Except for its view, because we were
I actually thought it was interesting.
We were overlooking the basketball court, which is also the pickleball court, which is also the volleyball court.
But I got to watch dodgeball. I got to watch bad adult basketball. Like I don't mind the view. And then there was a set of stairs that went up to a landing that had a large, like a king size bed up there, another bathroom, and a set of closets. I thought it was a gorgeous. They have live plants, or actually they're fake plants. They had fake plants and rockery in the room. This is by no means, by the way, the highest end suite that Royal offers.
No, this is quite a few levels down from the highest end suite. I'm seeing a couple of comments about floating Vegas and whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. I think it depends on who you are. I'm going to say, I don't think Vegas is a bad thing. I think it's a different vibe, right? It's not a Disney vibe.
Well, and I want to distinguish it from Vegas in one regard. So let's just skip ahead for a second and talk about casino. We didn't use the casino much, nor did we have to walk through the casino ever unless we chose to.
Not even much, Brian. We didn't use the casino at all.
Yeah, at all.
We did not gamble at all. There is a large casino that allows smoking. There's also, on the Oasis class ships, there's also a small casino that's open in the evenings that is a non-smoking area, and that was nice. If I was going to gamble, that's where I would have, but I didn't feel the need to. I've gotten I'm not anti-gambling. I actually like playing at card tables. I wouldn't play slots. That's not my thing.
But I want people to know that the casino was like essentially in the basement.
Like, it was you didn't have to go anywhere near it if you didn't want to. It was very easily avoidable. There were a lot of people that were going down there, but you certainly didn't. And it was a big entertainment space. in the evening, meaning a lot of people would go there, but it certainly was something you could easily avoid, and you wouldn't really miss it.
There were entrances to other venues outside of the casino. You actually had to walk down a very long hallway from those venues to even get to the casino. So
Yes.
the casino was a non-factor here. So the only reason I said Vegas is there's just a lot of like neon and and that sort of stuff, but it's not. You could just as easily say a really nice resort hotel on the ocean, right?
Right.
All right, so one other thing about our first day. So we got up to our room. Because we were in the suite class, the suite lounge and a specialty restaurant. P.S. Disney does not offer that in concierge. There's a special restaurant just for suite class guests called Coastal Kitchen.
And
so
Pinnacle
we head up to
guests.
And yeah, you keep talking about Pinnacle. Let's just we're not Pinnacle. No one watching this show is Pinnacle. There's Coastal Kitchen that is dedicated for suite guests, and we went to have lunch there. And Sam, what did you think of lunch at Coastal Kitchen?
I thought it was nice. I mean, it was similar to sitting in main dining, except much smaller. So we're talking about, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 tables, something like that at any given time. Mostly there are some bigger ones and mostly four tops, but I thought Coastal was nice. It was, in general, I would say it was a good place for breakfast. It was my preferred place to go for breakfast over Windjammer. We'll talk about Windjammer later. But I enjoyed the first lunch. I thought the food quality was good. The service was good. But it reminded me most of main dining on Disney. That's what I would give it as a comparison, but on a much smaller level and much quieter because it only serves the suite guests and Pinnacle guests as well.
Yeah. Let's pause here for 1 second and just talk about the restaurant experience on board. So there's main dining, obviously. Sam, you walked into the main dining room. I took a peek in as well. It's a gorgeous dining room. And I'll say, I know in my review of the Independence of the Seas, I faulted Royal because it didn't feel like the dining room was kept up very well. This dining room actually looked quite nice.
Yeah, it was very pretty. It was three different levels. And I will say my sister and her family were traveling with us, although they were eating separately for the most part because she has very young kids. So they were doing the set early dining. They ate in main dining for dinner, I think 6 out of the 7 nights that we were on board, because they had hibachi with us one night, and they were very happy in main dining, and they were on a level or in a section that only had families with young children. So they did not feel like they were being disrupted or that or their kids who are, I'll just say they're rambunctious little boys, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, that they didn't feel like they were interrupting anybody else's dinner.
Yeah. And so the one thing Royal does in main dining, every night's kind of a theme. Now, I will say, we were told we should avoid main dining. So we did not make it into main dining. Sorry. We did hear reviews from Sam's sister. She thought the food was fine. They have a Mexican night, an Italian night. They had a Caribbean night. They had a lobster night, all of that sort of stuff. We chose to eat at a lot of the different specialty restaurants because we wanted to sample them and we wanted to try Coastal Kitchen. I see a comment here about, is Coastal Kitchen better than main dining? That is the aim.
Yes,
the aim is a higher level of food. Yeah.
They do have so if you look at the main dining menu and you look at the Coastal Kitchen menu, there are some dishes that are identical. They presumably, at least their descriptions are identical. So presumably the actual dishes are identical, but they do, in addition to those identical sort of standard dishes, they have some ones that I think are supposed to be elevated. If I could tell you, like, the quality of the food to me I don't think it seems elevated in comparison to main dining on Disney Cruise Line, but it is probably elevated compared to main dining on Royal Caribbean Cruise Line.
I think main dining on Royal is likely to be below the food standard you would experience on Disney Cruise Line. I think Coastal Kitchen will be close to, if not on par with, a Disney dining experience. Maybe some dishes there were some dishes that we had that you would not see on Disney. They were very flavorful. They had a lot of spice to them. So, that was really nice to see. The other nice thing about Coastal Kitchen, at least, we could eat there for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We didn't have to make we made reservations for it. You're supposed to, but, it wasn't hard for us to get a reservation.
Yes.
So I think but what's supposed to be the cut above Coastal Kitchen are all of these specialty restaurants. Now, in addition to the specialty restaurants, which we'll talk about day by day here as we eat in them, there are other upcharge food options on board. So there's a Johnny Rockets on board that has it's not a la carte. It is a fixed price. So you walk in, you pay one price, you get a burger, you get fries, and a milkshake is extra unless you have a beverage package. They had a hot dog place that was included.
Right.
And so
But then they had Playmakers, which was like a burger and wings like bar.
But that's a la carte. That's
a la carte, right? And same with Portside Barbecue, also a la carte.
A la carte.
So they had a couple of different options, as Brian mentioned. There's a Mexican place that's like a quick service Mexican place that's included. All of the sit down specialty restaurants are add-on charges.
Yeah, and
we've got a question about what.
Hold on. I think I just want to correct. I think I lied. I don't think we had lunch at Coastal Kitchen. I think we went to Coastal Kitchen, we went to the Sweet Lounge, and I got a hot dog on day one. I remember that. I think I got a hot dog for lunch because I just wasn't very hungry after the breakfast that we'd had at the hotel, and then we had dinner at Coastal Kitchen that night.
That's right. You're right.
Which I think is good. So yes.
So Wesley's asking what room number we were in. We were actually in room number 1738. So we were on deck 17. All of the Sky Class, or at least the Crown Lofts, are on deck 17. So which was great because we were
all of the lofts on Oasis, I think, were on 17.
Yeah, which was great because we were right by Coastal Kitchen, which is. It's a little bit weird, but the lounge, the suite lounge encompasses a lounge side and Coastal Kitchen. It is all one large room. So there is kind of a separation, but it's all in one large room. Karen is asking, what about the escargot? This is a great question, Karen, because as you know, Josh Wilson contended that the escargot on Royal Caribbean was better than the escargot on Disney Cruise Line. So, of course, we had to try it. I believe we actually had it on night one at dinner. Brian and I shared an order of escargot. And I would say they were on par. I wouldn't say that Royals was any better. I wouldn't say it was any worse. I would say they were pretty equivalent. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I don't know, but I got to move us along. I love all the comments in the chat. We got to keep going. We haven't even gotten out of day one, and we're halfway through the show. I think what we may need to do, folks, is we will try to address these questions as we go. But if we can't, we may come back and do like a Q&A episode or something along those lines to answer these questions in the chat. We super appreciate everyone watching, but we've got a lot of information to share in a very compressed amount of time. So we will see what we can do here. Okay. Also on day one, we registered Nathan for the Kids Club, and I wanted you to talk about that, share that experience, Sam, of getting him registered.
Yeah, so because nothing is pre-registered, when we got there, I had to fill out a bunch of stuff on the iPad. If your child has no medical issues, no diagnoses, no nothing, it will probably be a pretty fast process. You go into sort of what they call the Adventure Ocean like theater area, and that's where you fill out the iPad. Because our kiddo has obviously some disabilities that we've talked about before on the show, it took me a little bit longer to fill out that stuff. I wish that was something that I could have filled out in advance. But the space looked pretty nice. We didn't get to go like sort of back into the club. But Nathan, I will say, did have a really great time in the kids club. In general, he would give you, I would say, probably a 2 thumbs up review. I will say we did have one issue with the kids club with him a little bit because there was quite a competitive Gaga ball tournament, and Nathan felt kind of slighted by the counselors not listening to him when he got out a couple times, and he didn't think it was fair. So they didn't maybe handle that so well, but in general, Nathan had a great time. He spent every single night at the kids club, basically after dinner, which allowed us to do some adult late night activities. So that was great. He seemed to really enjoy it. He also really enjoyed the arcade. So that would be another thing I think he had a great time with. That's something that is not available on Disney Cruise Line. It obviously costs money. The kids club doesn't cost any money. The arcade does. With regard to the kids club, though, there is one thing I wanted to mention. After 10 p.m., if your child does stay in the kids club, it will cost you $10 an hour or $5 every half hour for your kid to stay in the kids club until, I can't remember if it's midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. I think it depends. It's different depending upon the night. That is a very cheap babysitting price from my opinion, and Nathan stayed in the kids club till, I don't know, 11:30 most nights. So he really had a great time with that.
Yeah. So Also on day one, we did have a chance to go down to the spa and tour the spa. The thermal suite was specifically what we wanted to tour. I will say this. Massive space devoted to exercise. For all of you Disney fans who wish the Wish had a running track, this ship had an amazing outdoor
really nice running track.
Great ship for runners. We did a run while we were on board. It was fantastic. The thermal suite, however, is not something that I would spend money on. For a ship that holds, I think, 6,000 people, the thermal suite looked to be about the same size as the thermal suite on the Wonder and the Magic. And so they did say that they really don't sell many of the passes into the thermal suite in order to keep the crowd down. But in my opinion, it was no real difference between it and what's on the Magic or the Wonder. In fact, in some ways, it may have been a lesser experience. I did not buy a pass because I just looked at it and said it's just not it's not worth it. It didn't have any outside view, anything. We
did use the spa, though, so I want to talk about that really quick. I want to say, echo Brian's comments, the gym is enormous. The gym is really nice. If you're a gym rat, you'll love their gym. But I will say the spa, I don't think was quite as nice as the spa on Disney Cruise Line. I did have a manicure, pedicure, and I also had a massage, and I felt like the treatment rooms and equipment were just not nearly as nice as Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that on day 2 because that's when we had our spa treatments.
All right. Well,
let me guide you. Let me guide you.
I'm just trying to help us get to different topics quicker. Sorry.
I will, but I want to talk about my spa experience too.
Okay.
On day 1 was jam-packed. You also had rock climbing with Nathan.
Right.
You tried the rock climbing wall. No fee for rock climbing. No added fee. That was included.
I did not try it. Let me just be clear.
No, it was
Nathan
huge.
Tried it.
It was a huge wall.
There was actually 2 of them. We only one of them was open that day. I think the other one was open on other days. But yeah, Nathan tried the rock climbing. He was not great at it. I did not brave it. But yeah, it was an included activity. There's also a zip line that's an included activity. We didn't try that. And we did mini golf that day as well. Nathan and I, there's a 9-hole mini golf course, which was fun. It was, I think, the same golf course as you had mentioned you had done, or really similar to on Independence.
It was
of the
very
Seas.
similar. Yeah, it was the same name. It looked like the same kind of holes and everything. So yeah. We did check out the theater so Sam could see the stage set up for Cats. Full disclosure, I did have a seat reserved to see Cats, and Sam berated me enough that I decided to not go see Cats. So we did not see.
I did not berate you. I just told you.
The number of times I was told don't see Cats by many people.
Yeah, by many people, not just me. I just told you that's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get
Your
back.
opinion is the only one that matters, honey.
That's right.
So I did not see Cats. We are going to be on Allure next month, and I do think Sam is going to make efforts to see the main stage show. So did not see
Mamma
Cats.
Mia. So I will. Mamma Mia is also not my favorite show, but is not. It is no Cats. So Cats is just not just not my favorite. I hate it.
The other thing we did on day 1 was we tried out the Abyss. So they have a 10-story dry slide that goes from deck 16 all the way down to the main deck. I think it's 4. And basically,
like
you basically get like the equivalent of a nice potato sack, and you put yourself in it, and you slide all the way down. That was really fun. Nathan enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. That was a good time.
I had fun.
Can't tell we did everything on day 1. It seems like so.
We tried to do a lot because we knew we wanted to relax, and so the more we could explore and do, we were like, the more we get to actually relax too.
Yep. The other thing that we did, we got some nighttime. And so after we did Coastal Kitchen and Nathan went off to the kids club, we checked out Globe and Anchor, which is one of the bars on board. It's their pub.
Globe and Atlas.
Globe and Atlas? Oh, I had Globe and Anchor,
Yeah.
whatever.
No.
So anyway,
Yeah.
but the pub on board, they have a fabulous guitarist musician in there, and he had like a looping machine. And so he would play hip hop music. He'd play standard Irish tunes. He'd play rock. Like he was
played Bob
really
Dylan. He was
it was
so
a great place for some after dinner music and drinks. Had a fabulous time in there. I would just say, to put a point on it, the nightlife on board a royal ship is very different than the nightlife on board a Disney ship. Lots of options, lots of things to do, lots of places to go for different experiences. We'll talk about some of those as we go here. Really enjoyed the guitarist in that venue. We went there a couple times during the cruise. It was really fabulous. And then We tried a different kind of bar experience, Sam. You remember the Rising Tide? You want to tell folks a little bit about that?
I love this. So this actually is Nathan's favorite bar on Royal Caribbean, oddly enough, because we took him there not that first night, but on a different night. So you start out on the promenade deck, so you're like in an indoor space, and there's this bar, and it's kind of oval shaped. You walk in, there's two different entrances. The sort of gates close while you're sitting and enjoying your beverage.
Every half hour, it's like.
And then it starts to rise, and it goes up 2 stories. So you go from deck 5, I believe, to deck 7, or is it deck 6 to deck 8? Yeah, so deck 6. Yeah, so deck 6 to deck 8. And then you get to
it goes from deck 5 to deck 8.
Oh, deck 5 to deck 8. Okay, so when you end, you're actually in Central Park. Now you are in there's a glass cover, so you're you're still in an inside space. But then you can go right outside if you want to leave. You leave on deck 8, and you're in Central Park. So you've basically taken an elevator ride while you've been sitting enjoying your beverage. And I thought it was really fun. We hung out there actually a few times, and as I said, we brought Nathan there a couple nights later, and he really
What's really fun about it too is because it ends on deck 8. Basically, most of the specialty restaurants we're going to talk about are on deck 8 off of Central Park, and so I like to we'll go down to deck 5, we'll get a drink, and then magically we're in Central Park again and ready for our dinner. So it was a really cool concept of a bar right across the way. Is a bar that people have probably seen on social media a ton with the robotic arms making drinks.
Yes, I will say, bionic bar.
We watched it. I did not order a drink from it. It was so slow to get a drink out of that bar because the arm kind of jerks around and makes movements.
It's cool to watch. Yeah. It's a novelty. I wouldn't hang out there. We did hang out there to watch the thing make drinks for maybe 5 or 10 minutes a couple of times, but I wouldn't hang out there and probably drink my drink there.
Yeah. All right, so Sam, you stayed up until midnight for a very special, event on Royal Caribbean.
That's right.
Yeah, tell folks about it.
So the balloon drop that I mentioned at the top of the show, there were balloons. There were different colored balloons. There was blue, white, and yellow, whatever Royal's colors are. And they were in sort of nets on the ceiling. And at midnight, they did a countdown. The cruise director came out. It was actually the only time I think I saw the cruise director. And to this day, I couldn't tell you his name and what he looked like, which is obviously very different than on DCL where you see that person over and over again. But they had a band playing. It was kind of like a New Year's Eve kind of a moment. They have a band playing for maybe 45 minutes to an hour up before midnight in the promenade. Lots of people hanging out, dancing, singing along, just kind of having a good time. And at midnight, they drop the balloons, and then they have everybody pop them and recycle them. So it was very loud. I'll put it. The popping of all the balloons was very loud. So once the balloons dropped and people started popping them, Nathan and I jetted out to head back to the room to go to bed. But he really wanted to stay up for the balloon drop. And so I let him, and he was wearing his pajamas actually at the balloon drop because we were ready to go to bed as soon as it was done.
Yeah. All right. Well, that ends us with day 1. Okay, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit and really start to hit some of the highlights of the next several days. We did a ton on day 1 because I wanted Sam to see as much as she could and get some first impressions of the ship. But things slowed down for us a little bit after this. Days were filled more with excursions and things like that. So on day 2, it was a sea day. As Sam mentioned, we did have some spa treatments. I will echo. Spa treatment was fine, but the space was not great. I don't know that I'd seek out a spa treatment on Royal in future. I think Disney's spa is much, much nicer. But one fun activity we got to do on day 2 was the Royal Escape Room, Apollo mission. I forget what it's called, but it's so Royal Caribbean
Apollo
on
18, I think, something like that.
Yeah, Royal Caribbean on some of its ships has escape rooms. I know I talked about one on Independence of the Seas. Oasis has one, which is completely different, so it's a completely different experience. Sam, what did you think of the escape room on board?
I thought it was really fun. Now we, of course, got paired up with a bunch of other people. I think we ended up with 12 people, and you really needed, I would say, at least 8 people in order to be able to solve this thing. It was quite difficult, I thought. We ended up having our host gave some hints throughout the experience. It was similar to a puzzle room experience or escape room experience on land. Really, I wouldn't say it was any different doing it on a ship because you're in an enclosed room when you're doing it. I thought it was really well done. The production quality was high. I enjoyed it.
It was as good as some of the It was good as some of the highest quality escape rooms we've done here in the Seattle area, which has some really great companies doing it. Yeah.
We're kind of spoiled. So I want to put that out there. Like, we're spoiled by having really like high end, excellent production quality escape rooms in the Seattle area. And we've done a lot of them. Brian's done, I think, all of them, and I've done most of them. And so that's sort of my standard. And I would say this met that standard, and in some places exceeded, because there was some, technology involved. But it really did require a large group. And so we booked it as like individuals, and then they just pair you up with other people. So you all book it, through the app, and they cancel it if there's actually like 6 people or less or something, because you really can't solve it without enough people, because there's so many different puzzles and clues going on. But yeah, it was a cool experience.
Yep, it was a great experience. All right, so the other big event on day 2 is we had our first specialty dining experience. Also, I want to highlight Royal has, like on Disney, they have formal nights. Royal actually does like different dress codes than that. So they have a formal night, they have a white night, they have a Caribbean night, they have a dressed your best night, which is sort of more open to interpretation around the formality of it. And then, of course, they have casual nights. This was the formal night. I actually packed my suit and wore it, and it was kind of fun because we had a specialty dinner that night. We ate in Chops, which is the steakhouse on board. I hadn't eaten at Chops on Independence. I thought it was a really good dining experience.
Yeah.
On par with Palo.
Yeah.
In my opinion. What did you think, Sam?
I agree. I think it was a great dining experience. It is a steakhouse, so it's not the same as like Apollo, because it's a steakhouse and not Italian food. And I would say the steak quality is maybe not as high as the Apollo Steakhouse on the Wish, where you can get some really high end meats for
there's no Wagyu or
there was no
like
Wagyu, but I had a really nice New York strip. You had a really nice filet mignon. Nathan had a really nice filet mignon. There were sides that you order. It's a flat fee, but you order whatever you want off the menu. Yeah. So it's just a set price. I don't think there were any add-ons. At least I didn't notice any add-ons on the menu.
Just drinks.
Just right. And so we ordered some sides to share. Those were great. I thought the food was, very good quality. I was pleasantly surprised by that meal for sure. It was certainly one of my favorite meals on board, I would say. And Nathan, it was actually his favorite meal on board, he said.
Josh, I see your question about the escape room. I don't remember the price of it. For me, it was sort of, we're doing it, so I just didn't pay attention to the price. But I want to say it was like maybe $129 or somewhere around that 100 range, plus or minus 20. And yeah, I enjoyed Chops as well. I thought it was really, really good. I did want to pause. We didn't highlight. So we did get the all-inclusive drink package for this sailing. And we did it not because we thought it would be economical, because I still believe it almost never is, despite Matt Hochberg's best arguments to us. But we did it just for the all-inclusive nature of it. We never, like, you just showed your card half the time and they give you a drink. There was no slip to sign ever. So
and you could get smoothies and things like that as well.
The drink package included soda, all non-alcoholic beverages and all alcoholic beverages up to a certain dollar value, and then you'd pay more, and it gave you discounts on bottles of wine and a whole bunch of stuff. So we did. I don't think it's economical, but I appreciated the convenience of it, and so I can kind of see the value of it from that standpoint. It is annoying sometimes to have to pay for each drink along the way, but anyway, not economical. Just want to highlight, we had that package. So we never really, in a restaurant or something like that, if we wanted a drink or a glass of wine or something, it was all included. And all of the specialty dining that we did, we paid for up front. So when we got on board, there was, again, nothing. We got $0 bills, and we would just leave a tip for the server that we thought was appropriate for the meal. So, anyway, that was the dinner for day 2. The other thing we did on day 2 that you can't do on Disney Cruise Line, Sam, is a little live karaoke, which a video of that is floating around in our Patreon group. If anyone wants to go check out Sam's full rendition,
you have to become a patron. You've got to become a Patreon. So I got to sing karaoke in the music hall with a live band. There were only, I think, 7 or 8 spots for people to sing with the band. There's karaoke that goes on like all the time on Royal in the Spotlight Lounge. And so this was in a different space. The Spotlight Lounge is where they have the the karaoke machine and all of that kind of set up. But this was a special. It was in the app. It told you when it was and all of that. And so I think 7 or 8 people got to sign up, and I decided to sign up with a little prompting from my husband, and saying Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. So that was really fun. Not something I don't think I've ever sang with a live band before. It's kind of terrifying because you really need to know when you come in. There's no bouncing ball on a screen. You just get a sheet with lyrics. But it was really, really fun. Yeah.
Wesley brings up a good point, which segues us into another topic that we should cover. He said he didn't find the service and chops to be on par with Palo. I'm not going to disagree with you. I thought the service was fine. I thought it was good service. It wasn't sort of that like high level service. Now, I will say, while Sam appreciates the server who comes over and becomes best friends with you at the table, that's not my style. I just like bring me the food and the beverage that I've ordered in a quick and efficient way. And I'm happy to, have a kind word, but like Sam will talk to the server all afternoon if she could. You're not going to get that on Royal. I thought the server was sort of my speed of server. Like they brought the food, everything was hot. If there was an issue, they dealt with it. The only thing I'll say about service generally on Royal is that I found a lot more crew conflict in public. I'll just put it that way. Like that, and I didn't get the same level of like everywhere you go on Disney, if you make eye contact with someone who's a cast member, they're like, "Hi, how are you today? Have a magical journey," kind of thing.
Right.
That
have a great breakfast, right? Yeah.
I will say our stateroom attendant was on par with any stateroom attendant I've ever had on Disney Cruise Line. I thought the concierge staff was on par with the concierge staff on the Wish. Just based on how they kind of work it. The concierges sit at a desk just like kind of they do on the Wish. They don't really necessarily roam the room very much. But other than that, I'd say the service was, they were there to do their job. They would solve problems for you, but they weren't going to go out of their way to, be super friendly and get to know you. Like that just...
And there were standouts and there were non-standouts, right? Like you see on any cruise line frankly in any restaurant, you'll have some people who are standouts and some people who are not. I would say the level of friendliness and the level of service was a step below Disney Cruise Line, but not it wasn't bad in any way.
I'm actually going to quibble with you. I think there's a higher degree of variability in what you're going to get. I don't think it's as consistent as Disney. So just to answer that question from Wesley, the karaoke, fabulous. I was so proud of Sam for getting up there and doing it. It was a really fabulous thing and something you can't do on Disney Cruise Line. I'm going to pause us here because I promised you a special offer, and Karen from My Path Unwinding Travel, thank you for extending this offer out to our listeners. But if this is piquing your interest, and we may remind you again at the end of the show once we've given our full and final review, if this is piquing your interest and you've been thinking about sailing on Royal, Karen has a fantastic offer here, and her team at My Path Unwinding they're specialists in cruising. They are very knowledgeable about Royal and have helped guide us through this process. But the offer that she has available right now is a stateroom category onboard credit. So if you book a suite, you'll get $100 per stateroom credit. If you book a balcony, it's a $50 per stateroom credit. An interior or ocean view gets a $25 per stateroom credit, and that's for bookings through May 4th. And on top of that, they've got a free specialty dining for two as an addition. The booking window for that is April 15th through May 14th of this year. The sailing window is July 1st through December 31st, so the end of this year. So you have to book between April 15th or May 14th and sail between July 1st and December 31st. And that is for balcony or suite on any 7-night or longer Caribbean, Bermuda, or Bahamas sailing. So if we're piquing regardless of whether you can take advantage of those offers, if we're piquing your interest, please, please, please use our referral link. Head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCLduo. I think we also have an email, dclduo@mypathunwinding.com. If you reach out to those, they will take great care of you, help guide you through this process of grief as you leave Disney Cruise Line to try Royal. Don't worry, Disney will still be there to bring you back. So thank you, Karen, for that offer. Again, we'll put a reminder out at the end of the show, too, about those. Because I think when we get to the final review, we might push some people over the edge. We just may. So, all right, let's move on to day 3. Now, this was another sea day for us. It was supposed to be a port day. Interestingly, I mentioned at the front of the show that there were some oddities around activity booking and things. This was one. This was supposed to be a port day. On board, they have some things you can book, and there's a price difference between port and sea day. When they switched the sailing and put the port day on a sea day and a sea day on a port day, they didn't adjust any of the prices.
Yeah, so the casitas, which are kind of like day beds,
Yeah.
you can book those, and they're like $120, let's say, on a port day, but they're like $450 on a sea day, and they didn't adjust the pricing appropriately.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, if you wanted to book it on a day that was going to end up being a port day, you were going to pay $450. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, we on the sea days, we did spend some time on the pool deck. I want to highlight, and Sam can give her impressions. Royal has a lot going on their pool deck, a lot of pools, a lot of space. That said, crowded. Like, this was a spring break sailing. It was crowded. And, you know, Royal, I think, has a bit of a reputation for chair savers and all of this. It was in full effect. It was very crowded. Now, we lucked out because we were suite guests. They had a special deck on deck 17 forward. They had a suite guest deck. It was very nice. They actually had some areas that were like small cabanas for the suite guests that you didn't have to book. It was just first come, first serve. They had deck chairs. They had a bar up there.
Bed things. Yep. I mean, yeah, they had. It was very, very nice, and it was kid friendly. Even though there's no water up there, so there's no hot tubs, there's no wading pools, no nothing like that.
Well, they have the sprayers.
Yeah, but if you want to relax, it's a relaxing space. It's not there's no splash pad or anything that your kids are going to play in. So but
you still get all the kinetic energy from the pool deck down below, which was nice. One difference is too, for suite guests, you don't have to check towels in and out. For the rest of the guests, you have to scan your card, check out the number of towels you want, and P.S. return that same number of towels back to the towel station, or else you will get charged $20 or $25 per towel. So we did do that on occasion if we needed extra towels. I don't think it's the biggest hassle in the world. It's just kind of annoying. Royal up on their pool deck, in addition to having like splash pads, multiple pools, tons of bars. They have a forward solarium area that's adult only. Now that place was also jam-packed. There's a restaurant in the solarium that we didn't actually try, but we did eat there one night for the chef's table. But it was packed. Like, the pool deck was just packed. The other thing was the really cool water slide they have on board has been down.
The one that has like the bowl.
Yeah, several weeks. And so Nathan didn't get to do that water slide. He did a couple of the other water slides. He said they were fine, but very slow. So so the cool water slide was shut down, but the others were working. Also up on the pool deck is where you'll find they have some, Sam mentioned the barbecue place, which we also tried. I think it might have been on day 3 that we tried it. I thought the barbecue is a flat, no, it's a la carte. But basically, you go in and you order kind of a meal. You can order items a la carte, but there's really like some meal with like 2 mains or 3 mains and 2 sides and a dessert and that kind of thing. We ordered one of those and then split it because it was a ton of food.
It was so much food.
Yeah, I think our review of the barbecue place is mixed. I think there were some good things on there. I think there were some not so great things. The banana pudding dessert or whatever that was called, fantastic. Some of the meats
ribs were good.
The ribs were good.
The pulled pork was just okay.
I thought
and
the pulled pork was
sausage,
okay.
Yeah, the sausage was not very good. So Beth is asking, how many people does this ship hold? Oasis class ships in general hold about 6,000 people. So this ship was about
2,000 more than Disney's Best. Yeah.
But I would say I wouldn't say it felt like there were 2,000 more people though, because it's a bigger ship. So more people, but spread out over more spaces, larger spaces. Disney Cruise Line pool deck gets really crazy too. So I would agree the pool deck was generally crazy on sea days, but I wouldn't say it was any or significantly worse than or any different than Disney Cruise Line pool deck.
It's just like Disney. You'll be able to find a chair, but it may be in the direct sun all day. And if that's not your jam, or you're like us and, you know, we walk outside and sparkle like Edward, you know, like we couldn't do that. Like, we needed chairs in the shade. So that's where I mentioned earlier, our deck off of our room, that was fabulous. It was shaded most of the time. They had 2 very comfortable deck chairs out there that we could just sit on. So loved it. Also up on the pool deck though is where you'll find the Flow Rider.
2 Flow Riders.
I'm going to skip ahead for a second and just say we all tried the Flow Rider. Nathan loved the Flow Rider. I had a good time. I had a good time on the floor. I think we posted some pictures in the group of us on the Flow Rider. Sam struggled in the beginning, but, you know, got the hang of it.
I couldn't even get up on my knees.
It was a really cool feature to have on the ship. And what I appreciated was it wasn't like walk up, get your boogie board and figure it out, right? It was you got it. They did a little bit of training with you to help you understand how to get in and out and all of the safety stuff. And then when you got in, it was very structured. It was like, okay, now you've figured out how to hold your board steady. Now I want you to show me moving left and right. Now I want you to put your arms out and move left and right. Now I want you to, pose in different poses. Like the person's up there the whole time guiding you through the process, and then they show you, like, they demonstrate, like, I want you to do this motion to get on your knees on the board. Okay, now you've gotten on your knees on the board. I want you to do this motion to sit on the board. So yeah.
And you could do it over and over again. This is also something it's fully included. It doesn't cost you extra. It's open like quite a few hours every single day. And as I mentioned, you could do it over and over again. There were 2 flow riders. One of them was dedicated to boogie boarding. So that's anyone who's a beginner in doing this, that's what you're going to be doing. And then the other one was really dedicated to surfing. And I will tell you that they won't let anybody just like go and keep going with surfing. There's some rules. They basically give you 2 tries. And if you don't stand up, then you've got to, if you're unable to stay standing up for, I don't know how many seconds, you have to wait an hour before you can come back. And then once you pass a certain test, they give you a wristband and you can keep going on and on and on. But you got to be really good at that. The boogie boarding is where it's at for anyone who is a beginner or even close to a beginner. So that's the only one that we went to.
And I just want to highlight too, there are some like private lessons you can buy if you're really concerned about it. There's sometimes they do some private lessons. What else we saw on day 3? So, belly flop competition, Sam. It's not a Royal Caribbean cruise without the belly flop competition. Yes. Sam, you got to experience the first one. I got to say, winner was a guy from the state of Washington. Not me.
He was.
So
he was a large man from the state of Washington. Apparently, there was somebody who tied him, actually, who was not from Washington. But we just watched a little bit of it. It was at one of the pools. So in order to actually see it and hear it, you needed to go like either right up to that pool or like on the deck above to watch. So we watched from kind of the deck above, from the Lime and the Coconut Bridge is the area that we were standing on to watch it. And it was fun. There was nothing bad about it. I watched it just for a few minutes though. And then I was like, okay, I'm done with that. It's not something that would keep me entertained for a long time, but it wasn't as, let me put it this way. It wasn't as tasteless as I thought it would be. So
there you go. Not tasteless. That's the review. I wanted to highlight, we did try to do one activity, a family activity together with Nathan. It was a science activity in the kids club, and we got there and the space was tiny in comparison to the number of people that wanted to do it. So I didn't think that Royal had the best space set up for family activities. But it was there. It was optional. If we'd shown up earlier, maybe we would have done it. But when we showed up, maybe 5 minutes before, it was like wall to wall people. So just know that going in, it's not, they don't have like a D lounge equivalent on Royal that I saw where they're really doing a ton of family activities. That night was white night. So I mentioned the dress code. So we had a white night that night, and we dressed our best in white. But the big highlight of the night, Sam, Aqua 80. Aqua 80.
My God.
Now, before you give your review of Aqua 80, I want to give one caution about our room that we didn't mention up front. Because our room faced backwards, we could hear a lot of the Aqua 80 show going on, and it was run multiple nights. They did 11 o'clock showings or 10:30. 10:15
showings.
But it ran past 11. We could hear that 11, music in our room, and it was really difficult.
Very
loud. I would advocate, if you're looking at one of those crown loft suites, look for one on the sides, not one that faces the back. It didn't materially impact our enjoyment of the cruise in any real way because Nathan was up until 11:30 most nights, but wanted to give that disclaimer. But Sam, Aqua 80, the show you saw this is
the best show on board. This is a fantastic show. It involves acrobatics, diving, dancing, and really fun 80s music. It has no plot, so don't expect a plot. Some of the dancing is a little bit cheesy, but the acrobatics and like the death-defying feats that they do and the diving and the swim, there's synchronized swimming too. It's incredible. I will say, if Disney would do something like this, Disney would do it better, but Disney won't ever do something like this. And it's really, really cool. So I would give 2 thumbs up to Aqua 80. Definitely the best show on board. I know there are other Aqua shows on other ships, but apparently they're different. And we have heard through the grapevine that the Aqua 80 show is actually the best of all of them. So we were, I think, lucky that my first one was that. The new ship coming out on Royal, I believe it's called the Utopia of the Seas. They're doing a new Aqua show called Aqua 82. TOO. So it's going to be some other 80s themes, and the different shows have different theming of the music. I think that's sort of the main part. But it was the first scene. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but the first scene is a Back to the Future scene. That's all I'm going to say. It's awesome. Totally, totally awesome. Such a great show.
Yeah. So I echo it. It was fabulous. I had a great time throughout. The seating was super comfortable. It was a small venue, so that's why they run it so many times. Again, one of the benefits of the suite class was we had a dedicated seating area up to a certain point. Then they kind of opened up the ropes and let anybody in. But just a fantastic show. I didn't even care there wasn't a plot. It was just really amazing to watch.
And you do have to show up early if you want to get in. One, you have to reserve, and then if you want to get into the special seating for Sky Class and Star Class, you've got to get there early. So we got there, I think, about 30 minutes early.
Yep. That brings us to day 4, Sam, which day 4 is a big one because we did one of the most fun excursions I have done on any cruise.
Yep.
So what I really appreciate about some of Royal's excursions were they're not cookie cutter, go to a beach or go to a casino or go snorkeling or all that sort of stuff. We did an excursion called the Amazing Race, and this was in St. Martin, and it was run by a third-party company that does like triathlons. And basically we got off the ship and we met up with the guides. And now I'll say there's a lot of time between getting off the ship and getting to the start of this thing. So it took a long time to get there. But once we got there, we basically we were paired up with another family and we did a scavenger hunt back and forth across the island to end at a restaurant at the finish line. And there were physical challenges, there was trivia challenges, there were, puzzle challenges, all of this sort of stuff. I thought amazing excursion, Sam. Amazing excursion.
Agreed. And spoiler alert, we won the excursion. We won the Amazing Race or whatever you want to call it. Us and another family. The prize was a bottle of passion fruit rum. The other parents from that other family do not drink, so we brought home a bottle of passion fruit rum.
Yeah, so it was good. Yeah, good excursion. Sam, you also caught another show on day 3. You saw Frozen in Time.
Yes, Frozen in Time. I'm going to give that show 2 thumbs down. That was, the ice skating is great. The ice skaters are very talented, but they try to tell stories through the show. It's, I can't remember if it's Hans Christian Andersen. They try to tell fairy tales through the skating. It's dopey. It's silly. It's not well told. That's not a knock on the skaters and performers. It is just dopey, and I would not recommend. And I will tell you, when we're going on Allure in less than a month, I am not going to go see the ice skating show. They have a different ice skating show on Allure, but I think I'm going to skip it.
Yeah. Matt's asking how physical the excursion was. I want to highlight the family we were paired up with had a 5-year-old with us.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't physical in the sense of having to climb or run, really, but it's a lot of walking. So it's that it would be difficult for someone in a wheelchair, but it would be fine for anyone who has no mobility issues, but even for younger cruisers.
Yeah.
And we booked it through Royal. I'm not sure if it's available outside of Royal Beth.
Yeah. They that night we had dinner at the chef's table. So this was a special add-on experience that we did. It was held in the solarium. It was a table that held maybe
room.
It was a private room, a table that held maybe 20, but there were only 6 of us having dinner at the table. So
that's right.
6 of us. I thought it was a really good meal with a really good sommelier and really good wine pairings.
Yes.
Now, we heard a lot of hype about how this was a special menu and special wine pairings, all this sort of stuff. And Sam has since learned that her friend had the same exact experience. Yeah, on every ship.
I've seen pictures online, and I've seen other people posting online the chef's table. They had the exact same menu as us. Not all of the same wines, but some of the same wines. I will say I thought it was a great experience. It was great food, but it's not a repeatable experience because it's the same on all the different ships. And I think the ship we were on has one of the better experiences because it's in kind of a private room space. Apparently on some of the other ships, the space that they hold it in is not it's not a private room kind of a thing. But we had a really lovely evening, and there was a lot of wine that was poured that night. Let me just say that.
All right, that brings us to day 5, which was St. Thomas Day. We had originally thought we would get off the ship and take a cab over to Megan's Bay Beach, but after all of the stuff we had been up to, we just decided, wouldn't it be nice to just stay on board and experience some of the ship when it wasn't as crowded? That's what we did. So we pretty much relaxed that day. I think we might have done a flow rider that day. I can't remember. But regardless, it was much more of a relaxing, low-key day. Sam, I don't know if you said you wanted to talk about the buffet. This might be a good chance to just mention that, because I'm sure we had breakfast there. We may even had lunch at that buffet that day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We had breakfast and lunch at the buffet several times. And I think one time Brian and I had a late night snack at the buffet as well. I'm going to put it out there and say that Disney Cruise Line cabanas and obviously Marceline Market are better than the Windjammer Buffet. The Windjammer Buffet has way more hours. It's open, like, I don't know if it's all hours of the day, but it feels like all hours of the day. At least portions of it are at least open for like all hours of the day. But I thought the food quality was not as good as Disney Cruise Line. I actually didn't think, even though it was way bigger than Cabanas, I didn't think the variety was as good as Cabanas either. Breakfast was fine, but I really did not have a good experience there at lunch. I also didn't like that they don't have like burgers and fries and hot dogs and stuff on the pool deck. You have to go into Windjammer in order to get that food. So it's there, but because an entire area is taken up by burgers and fries and hot dogs, I feel like it's missing a lot of the other foods. Like I couldn't find like just a piece of chicken or a piece of pork on the buffet. So I'm not a fan of the buffet.
I don't know if you could find just a piece of chicken or pork on the...
You absolutely can. I have found that on Disney Cruise Line at lunchtime, like on any day, basically. And of course, they didn't have the peel and eat shrimp, which I know a lot of people like me really enjoy that on Disney Cruise Line. So I will say buffet was not as good. I didn't have anything gross. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good. And I think that the enforcement of washing hands is not as good on Royal Caribbean.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there. I think they do a pretty good job, but what I also appreciate about Royal Caribbean is it's not just like someone standing there pointing at the sinks. So at least on Independence of the Seas, they had Mr. Washy Washy. he would stand outside and sing the hand washing song and like.
I
really
know. I saw a lot of people just walking right by the sinks. I mean, you were forced to walk by the sinks, but I saw lots of people walking by the sinks. And so, yeah, Chris Kidder, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think Disney's buffet is better, but Royal's buffet is open more.
I'm going to say this.
Depends what you...
No, but I'm going to say this. On Independence of the Seas, I actually came back and thought, wow, that buffet was amazing.
Okay.
On this ship, I agree with you, though. On this ship, I was like, man, there's like no choices here. Like it was not good on this ship. So it may have just been that the Oasis is having an issue with its buffet. I don't know. I don't want to paint a generalization of Royal.
Fair.
I just, on Oasis, didn't like the buffet. On Indy, I thought the buffet was actually pretty good. That night, we had Sam's favorite dinner of the cruise at Giovanni's. Sam, you want to tell everyone about the fabulous meal you had at Giovanni's?
So Brian's being sarcastic. Brian's being sarcastic. This was the worst of the specialty dining. It might have actually been just the worst meal of the trip. I will say we tried the pizza at Sorrento's one day as well. I didn't think their pizza was good. I think our friend Chad Pennycuff from the My DVC Points podcast had said that Sorrento's pizza is great and you're going to love it. No, it's not great. It's the pizza on all the Disney Cruise Line ships is better. It's not bad, but it's not great. And then Giovanni's was probably, like I said, probably the worst dinner we had from my perspective. It wasn't gross. It just was not good. Let me put it that way. Yeah. None of I had a decent appetizer, but my main, like salad, my main, none of it was, I thought it was really pretty awful. So, I would not recommend, and I would not go back to Giovanni's, but I would go back to the chef's table. Well, maybe not the chef's table if it's repeatable. But I would go back to Chops for sure. And I know we haven't talked about it yet, but I would go back to 150 Central Park, which was arguably our best meal.
That's up next for dinner on the next day. So I want to highlight the highlights of day 6. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but we did get an invite to see. So Pinnacle, I think, and Star Class, I think, get an invite to see the Navigational Bridge tour. Royal offers a pay-for tour of the ship, and we had originally booked it, and Sam decided she didn't want to do it. I had already seen it on Independence, and so we just decided to skip it. But we got an invite through the concierge team on the Oasis to go on the Navigational Bridge, and so we did that.
That was cool.
It was a very unique experience. Nathan had a blast. He went with me on the last tour that we did on Indy, so he kind of seen it before. But Nathan had a great time. They let him, sit at the actual helm for a few minutes and get some pictures. The crew up there answered just tons of questions that people
awesome.
had. So really cool, and it's just such a fun experience to have. And it's kind of disappointing to me that we can't find a way to get that on Disney Cruise Line to be able to, see the bridge. And I should say this: we were on the navigational bridge while we were at sea, so it wasn't like the ship was parked and nothing was happening. They were actively sailing the ship between ports when we got on the navigational bridge. So, I just thought that was it's a really cool and neat experience. Because of that tour, we didn't make it out to the pool deck on the sea day until around noon, and so we decided to try to take advantage of an empty, unbooked casita. And I'll just say I'm only highlighting this because we ended up making it work. They ended up only charging us for half a day, and it was totally worth it for us because we wanted a shaded spot by the pool. But I will say we had the toughest time getting Royal to take our money for this thing because they're like, well, you can't book it in the app. And I'm like, you can't just charge $200 for my stateroom and call it good. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. So it took us about 45 minutes to figure that out. It was just kind of a silly thing on Royal.
It took them 45 minutes to figure out how they could take our money, which was silly.
So it was just kind of a silly thing. We also did a fun activity that day called the Mystery Game, which was kind of another puzzle. We got paired up with another few couples, and Nathan was there, and it was like you were solving a mystery with a package of puzzles and things.
Yeah. For anyone who's done an escape room in a box, that's what I would liken it to. And it was a great experience. We did awesome. We solved all the puzzles, and our team is the only team that actually solved it. And so we won. So Nathan ended up with a medal because on our team, it was a bunch of adults and Nathan. And so everybody was like, yeah, there's only one medal. And yeah, the kid can have it. So he was super, super excited about that.
Yeah. That was spoiler. Yeah, we won, so that was great. I just want to. There's some comments in here about like the buffet and Giovanni's and different experiences people have had, and Jamie Oliver's, which is the other Italian restaurant. I just want to say like we're reviewing the experience that we had. We've sailed Disney many times. From a buffet standpoint, didn't love it as compared to my experience with Disney. Indy, different experience. Giovanni's may have been an off, night or something, but it was not great. I have heard that Jamie Oliver's is different, and we might try that. So just to address those comments, this is our review based on our experience, which again, Sam's first time, my second. So just keeping it real on our own review here. We did
not do room service to answer Matthew's question.
We did not. There were so many food options, like I just couldn't even see fitting it in. We had dinner at 150 Central Park that night, which I think was a very fabulous. It was a very elegant setting.
It was a really good meal.
I thought the food was really good. I would definitely go back. Sam, did you have any different thoughts?
This was a fine dining meal. It was not a chef's tasting meal, but it was definitely a fine dining meal. I had like a duo of duck as my main. It was fantastic. So I would definitely go back to 150 Central Park. Like I said, that was probably the best meal we had all cruise. And then, Chops was maybe a very close second. They were both very good, but I would say 150 Central Park was a step above.
All right. This gets us to day 7, the big day.
Good, because I only got like 2 more minutes before I got to go pick up Nathan, guys.
Oh, you've got plenty of time. We got plenty of time. Perfect day. Coco Cay.
Yeah.
I'd been there before. The only new thing that we tried this time that I hadn't was that we got a cabana by the pool. I will just say that was a fabulous experience. I think it was well worth the money to have that space by the pool. And I will just once again say I love having access to a freshwater pool on these private islands. I thought I will say for me, it was a perfect day. And yes, I did try the secret sandwich, the chicken sandwich with the mozzarella sticks on it. So,
you did.
Sam, what's your review?
I really enjoyed Coco Cay. Coco Cay, I'm going to call it. I'm never going to call it Coco Cay. I had a really great day. I really enjoyed the cabana. I liked that they brought you your food. You can order your food and your drinks to your cabana. I also loved hanging out in the pool. We didn't spend any time at the beach. Because we had the cabana, we really just parked there. I will say when we're on Allure, we're going to be going to the what is it called? The beach club. And we're going to try one of those over the water cabana experiences. So we'll have a very different experience to contrast with after that cruise. But I had a lovely day at Coco Cay.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great experience. I did want to highlight, so that day we just ended up having dinner. We had dinner at the Hibachi Grill on board. I talked about that on a show that we did. Sam, I think, had it. It was a good. It was a
hibachi.
Yeah, it's
There's
nothing
nothing to complain about. It's
Yeah.
great. It's just a hibachi. It's not like the best food in the world. It's not the worst food in the world. It's a fun experience. Nathan really enjoys the performance aspect of the hibachi.
Yeah, we
Super
did it
fun.
for him. We did it for
Yep.
him because he enjoys it. So good meal, but not anything to write home about. All right. Last thing I want to talk about is disembarkation, then our all up. So I'll just cover disembarkation. So it was interesting. We got luggage tags in our room. We were told to disregard every communication we got about disembarkation. But apparently, if you're not in a suite, you actually have to go in and kind of tell Royal when you want to get off. And then you may or may not get the specific time you want. And then they deliver luggage tags to your room. And, if you want luggage assistance, they do have an express off. Just like concierge, they had an express down for us when it was time to get off. Biggest thing that I loved about disembarkation, or two biggest things I loved. One, Coastal Kitchen was open for breakfast, which meant
so we had a sit-down breakfast.
We had a full sit-down breakfast
really nice.
before we got off, and at 8:30 in the morning. So we didn't feel rushed at all.
Yep.
The other thing I loved is they do have the face scanning technology on Royal that they now have on Disney, and that we got off the ship. Again, it was like 10 minutes.
So yeah, it was
10
great.
minutes. The biggest hassle we had was getting the Uber because of the traffic backup.
Yes.
And there's no cell service at the terminal, so I figured out there was public Wi-Fi available. But the disembarkation was a very smooth process. Everything worked just fine. All right, with that, it's time for the all-up review. And people were asking, are we gonna her name to the Roy and do a? No, that's not. First Love Cruise Line is still Disney Cruise Line. But I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Sam. I'm gonna keep my review very simple. If I look at Disney as a 10 in price on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I mentioned earlier. So what I did ahead of the show, I took all of the expense, the base fare of the cruise, and everything we purchased leading into the cruise, and every onboard charge we incurred, which were pretty minimal because everything was prepaid. I put that all
except
together.
for our spa stuff, right?
No, everything.
Oh,
Everything's
including
included.
Our spa stuff.
Drink package, everything. Everything we spent on the cruise,
we each
not
did
airfare.
We each did manicure, pedicure, and another spa treatment. So we each did multiple spa treatments. So.
We had the full drink package. We just explained we had 4 or 5 nights of specialty dining. We had multiple spa treatments, onboard
Johnny
tips,
Rockets.
all the tips we gave, inclusive of the pre-cruise tips, the cabana, everything. All in. Just not our hotel, not our airfare, not our ground transportation back and forth. All in. Still clocks in thousands of dollars less than the base fare for the same or similar room, the same itinerary, the same week on the Disney Fantasy. And so if I look at that and I say, well, Disney's the 10 on the scale, and the base fare was 50%. So let's put Royal at 5 on the scale. Disney, the difference between Royal and Disney was not 2x in my mind. It was not from an experience standpoint. And I would argue there are some places where Royal beats Disney, hands down, in terms of number of activities, number of dining venues, number of bars, nightlife. I think Coco Key, if you're interested in a pool, there's an argument to be made. Coco Key is killing it. There's a time and a place for Castaway Key, so I don't want to over pivot on that. But I guess my basic point is, if Disney's a 5, the gap between Royal and Disney in terms of offering, experience, all of it is not twice as much. It's not twice as good, right? And so I do think Royal will be something that's in our rotation on occasion now, especially like spring break. We already looked at booking a spring break in 2026. It's the same price as this year that we just paid. So they're not even the price isn't jacking up that much. So,
but also
anyway, that's my review. That's my in a nutshell review. So go ahead, Sam.
I'm going to echo what Brian said, but I have to give some caveats to it because there are certain things, obviously, that Disney does way better. In general, entertainment is better. In general, food is better. And in general, their family activities are better, right? But I will say there are some things that that Royal does better. I mean, there's no escape room on Disney. There's no flow riders on Disney. There's no aqua show on Disney, right? So there are some things that it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. So to me, I agree with Brian that it is something that will be in our rotation. It will not replace Disney Cruise Line. It certainly doesn't replace Disney Cruise Line in my heart, because there's something about the magic, the service, the characters, the experience on Disney that is not replicatable. But I also on Royal will only probably sail Oasis class or better, and I would probably only sail Sky class or better, meaning Sky
100%.
class or Star class. So there are some benefits and things that we had that were included or available to us that would not have been available to us in a regular room or would not have been available to us on a older ship. Now, Oasis is not a new ship. I think it was built in 2008 or 2009, but it's been retrofitted once since then. We're going on the Allure, which is built after the Oasis, but not retrofitted. So we'll have a slightly older ship, but of the same class. But yeah, so I am curious about Icon and Utopia, although those are certainly going to be more expensive than Oasis class. So just to be clear, I don't think I would say like every Royal ship or, is a comparable one to Disney, but this experience on Oasis has a lot of good things. There's a lot of good offerings. It's a different product than a Disney Cruise Line cruise, but it is a really good product. That's the thing that I came away with, being like, wow, there's a lot of really cool things I could do. There's a lot of really good food available. But you are going to have to do that. If you want to do the price comparison, you're going to have to do what Brian did, which is adding on a lot of those things that you would not be paying for on Disney because you would just go to main dining, for example, or you would not have available to pay for.
I did the price comparison because I wanted to be clear about this sort of nickel and diming argument that people have, and that sort of thing. I did not find it to be true.
Yeah, it doesn't hold true. And we didn't feel like we were being advertised. There is a lot of shopping available. I did a little bit of window shopping, and then I think I bought one swim shirt at the very end of our cruise. I had seen a couple people wearing and I liked. But yeah, I didn't feel like I was being advertised to. I didn't feel like I needed to shop. It was really... It didn't feel at all like that. So I would give Royal Caribbean Cruise Line on the Oasis of the Seas, I'd give it 2 thumbs up. I'd say it's not equivalent to Disney, but at, I don't know, 60% of the price, maybe it's, and Brian, I'm stealing what you said, that maybe 80% of the experience.
Yeah, and I think in some places it's 80%, in some places it's 90%, in some places it's 120%. Like I think it sort of depends on where you are. But all right, we got to wrap up because we got a son to go pick up. I hope you enjoyed this show. If you've got more questions about our experience on Royal Caribbean, feel free to shoot them to us in an email. We may do kind of a wrap-up Q&A kind of show. Remember, again, some fabulous offers from My Path Unwinding Travel out there. So if this piqued your interest and you're interested in Royal Caribbean, head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCL Duo, or you can email DCLduo@mypathunwinding.com to take advantage of those offers. But with that, thank you so much for watching, everybody. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
See you real soon.